officials,
Yeah,
elected
I
officials.
just want to make
I
sure.
think I have heard sort of a change in Democratic elected officials, or at least people that are running. I mean, when you look at Zohran Mamdani here in New York, I think he gave Democrats the blueprint on how to run and how to address those kitchen table issues that people keep on talking about. He ran on affordability in New York City. You can't live in New York affordably. People are out on the streets. People have full-time jobs, can't buy a home. That's what he ran on. That's what he won on. And so I think that we are seeing sort of a shift in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has always been for the working people, and maybe that didn't get through, but it certainly is getting through now because they see that the Republican Party is not for the working person, that it's not for the middle class. It's for the billionaire class, of which there are what, a couple hundred in the entire country?
No, there's 800 some billionaires.
A couple hundred, yeah, 800.
I want to see solutions. I feel like politicians on both sides are just want to debate the status quo, and we basically are. It feels like every election we're running on the same things. I want people to come up with new and big ideas to tackle the future. Yeah. That's where I get nervous. But I will say this on Mamdani. He ran the right message, the cost of living. His solutions are not right, and they will drag Democrats down. If having government-run grocery stores that mandate prices is the answer, if you think capping rents and making people so it's just going to raise the cost of living in New York, it's not going to actually lower them. That's what's going to hurt Democrats in the midterms if they are literally tagged to somebody who's openly running as a socialist. Just put out a smart immigration plan that creates a path for citizenship. Talk about how you're going to lower costs without going full-blown socialism. That's how you win the midterms.
Well, I also want to point something else out that maybe people don't realize are happening. You know, with all the floods that are happening in Texas, we generally give money to different agencies, and agencies are finding that they're not getting the money because people are blaming the people who died in the floods. And they're saying, well, why should I give you, you voted for this. Let me tell you, let's be really clear. Wow. Yeah. And it's unbelievable, but it's happening. And so I just want to be really clear. You know, you can't blame anybody for these floods. It's nobody's fault. I didn't do it, you didn't do it, it has nothing to do with Washington. This was what happened. This was a natural disaster. And if you are writing on people's socials where you should be giving, if you're saying these kinds of things, damn you. Damn.
At Wayfair, we get pretty excited about furniture. Around here, it's not a patio, it's patio.
Oh, I love those chairs.
Shit.
And just because folks like Charlie Kirk are now saying, hey, let this go, are true believers going to do it?
So this is a moment of sincere political urgency for Trump. Back in 2021, his lead pollster, Tony Fabrizio, did a survey of the Republican electorate and found that there were a full 10% of the Republican voters who said that they believed in QAnon conspiracy theories. So the political fallout potential here is very real. That's why the White House has, and President Trump himself, have been leaning on conservative influencers like Charlie Kirk. The fact that Dinesh D'Souza, you know, who has fanned so many outrageous lies about the stolen election, about Obama's birth certificate, he's saying back off this, that really shows you that the influencers are falling in line. That doesn't mean, however...
How does that happen?
Well, it happens because a very angry president of the United States gets on the phone and yells at you. Or people from the White House really turn up the heat, which we know is exactly what's happening in this case. But that doesn't mean that the average voter, the MAGA moms and dads, are just going to forget and move on. Because for years they were told, elect Trump, elect MAGA Republicans, and we won't lie to you. We will get to the bottom of all of these cover-ups that have disenfranchised you, that have put these powerful people in positions to abuse their authority and to, you know, do the most egregious, unimaginable things possible, like sexually abuse children. And now they're being told just to forget it and move on. I don't think it's that simple. But as President Trump has always done, he will find somebody else to blame for this. And already you're seeing Pam Bondi being thrown under the bus. Dan Bongino is making noise. I don't know that Trump is ready to fire anybody yet. That's, from what I'm told, he's very concerned about even getting somebody to replace Pam Bondi, confirmed through the Senate. So we'll just see what else happens in the next few weeks.
Well, he certainly has been very clear about his support for her so far. Ken, let me play for you what the president's daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, said just yesterday.
What she said?
There needs to be more transparency on this. And I think that will happen. I mean, look, I don't know what truly exists there, but I know that this is something that's important to the president as well. He hears all the noise and he hears all of the consternation out there. And I think he's going to want to set things right as well. So I believe that there will probably be more coming on this. And I believe anything that they are able to release that doesn't, damage any witnesses or anyone underage or anything like that, I believe they'll probably try to get out sooner rather than later because they hear it and they understand it. So hopefully we see that happen sooner than later.
Sooner rather than later, there will be more coming, Ken, but is that, I don't know, at odds with what the FBI and DOJ said just last week?
It absolutely is, Chris. That's the problem. They took a hard look at this with an eye towards being as transparent as possible. And what the career Justice Department and FBI officials reviewing this concluded is there's nothing more they can release because what's left is material that's been sealed by judges, so they don't have the authority to release it, or that identifies child victims or other kinds of victims of sex crimes, or that makes unsupported allegations against uncharged people, which is things that the Justice Department never releases. I mean, this is a secret criminal investigation that was a massive intrusion of privacy, and these files are kept secret for a reason. But it seems clear that the political mandate here is that they got to find a way to release something. They have to throw their base a bone here. They may appoint a special secret investigation to look again at this and find some way to do something to appease the base because it's not working. There's breathtaking cynicism and opportunism, and I would say it's on both sides now. Those House Democrats, they know better. To suggest that some of these, files involving child sex victims should be released is just incredibly cynical. They're taking advantage of an opportunity here. We understand why they're doing it, but they're really playing with fire, Chris.
Yeah, Melanie, we really didn't see a lot of folks in Congress getting involved in this until last night, and that's when Democrats tried to force this disclosure of the Epstein files and failed. Is that the end of the story on Capitol Hill? Could there be more to come?
Well, none of Democrats having any say in the matter. As Ken was pointing out, they have been very eager to capitalize on this growing rift inside Trump's coalition, a rift that does exist among Republicans here on Capitol Hill. Now, I would say most Republicans didn't want to touch this issue with a 10-foot pole. Most of them were dodging the questions when we asked them here in the hallways, and that is because it puts them in a really uncomfortable position, having to take sides between either Donald Trump, the president, or the MAGA movement. Now, there were a handful of Republicans who did come out and say they completely support Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi for how she handled this case. But there are other Republicans who have said that the American public deserves more transparency. Just take a listen to some of these reactions from Republicans.
Just folks back home are not asking me about the Epstein file. That is just not my focus. I did 2 telephone town halls last week, 5,000 Kansans on both of them. This was not even brought up one time.
I think it's reasonable for the American
people to ask who he sexed, trafficked these young women to, if anybody, besides himself. And if there were others involved, why they haven't been prosecuted.
Part of the problem with this issue, like so many issues, is that the longer it lingers, the greater the imagination gets, and sometimes it outpaces the reality, and that can become a big disappointment for a lot of people.
Now, there was an amendment that failed in a committee last night, but there was one Republican who crossed over with Democrats. That's Ralph Norman of South Carolina, a Freedom Caucus member. He voted with that amendment that would have forced the release of the Epstein files. And meanwhile, there are Democrats who are vowing to keep pushing ahead with this issue. Mark Veazey of Texas said he's going to introduce a resolution and try to introduce that on the floor in the coming days. So even as Trump and his allies try to turn the page on this whole saga, Democrats not going to let it go that easily, Chris.
Yeah, so Jeremy, while some big name conservatives seem to be moving on. You have people like Laura Loomer. She wants a special counsel appointed. Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee was suggesting that Epstein's former partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, maybe should come and testify. Obviously, whatever actually is in those files, there's a pending petition in front of the Supreme Court, which would definitely make a U.S. attorney not likely to want any of that out, which may be why Laura Trump said anything they are able to release that doesn't damage witnesses or anyone underage. But bottom line, I mean, is Kevin Cramer right that the longer this goes on, the more trouble it is? They've got to get this under control.
It's not going away. And this is what Trump and the Trump Republican Party get for fanning these flames of conspiracy theories for years when most of them knew better, right? This is what you're seeing right now with a lot. I would describe it as like, the MAGA grift machine devouring itself, because you have people like Candace Owens, Laura Loomer, Tucker Carlson, a lot opportunists, a lot of them, who are using this as an opportunity to basically grow their own audience and tell their supporters what they want to hear, which is, no, this still has legs to it. We don't know the full story here. We'll never know the full story. And that's the thing about conspiracy theories. They continue to self-perpetuate regardless of what type of concrete proof you have out there. You could have a video affidavit from Jeffrey Epstein from the grave saying, I don't have a client list. Hillary Clinton was not involved. And it still wouldn't matter. They would say it's AI. That's what conspiracy theories are. They keep going.
By very definition. Okay, Yasmin, that brings me to you. And I want to play what the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, had to say about all of this on Monday.
CNN's Elena Treen is in Pittsburgh, where President Trump is also set to speak here in a few minutes. Elena, what more are you learning about how the White House is handling the fallout here?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's very clear from our reporting, our conversations with White House officials, Trump administration officials, that he wants specifically this story, or people to move on from this story. He's trying to get his base to let this go away, and he's directing some of his team behind closed doors to do what they can to help it die down. That's why we actually saw the president directly making calls this weekend. We know he reached out to Charlie Kirk, a fierce supporter of his, the head of the Turning Point USA, and they held a summit this weekend. He had tried to, convince him to, knock off with the criticism, tamp down some of the criticism of the handling of this Epstein case. And we actually saw Kirk yesterday say that for now, he is not going to comment further on all of this. And we also know that the Vice President, J.D. Vance, he was trying to play peacemaker with people within the administration where there's been infighting on this between the FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino. He also called Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, and Attorney General Pam Bondi were reporting. But just to add to some of what we heard from the president right there, he's been very full-throated in his defense of Bondi repeatedly now in the last several days. But he also argued that he believes that if she believes that they can put out some more of these files and have them do it in a credible way, that she should. But then he also tried to argue and really cast the blame on some of his political opponents, saying they made up some of this idea that there was a file list or a client list in the first place. Take a listen.
On Epstein, of the review of the files, Attorney General Pam Bondi.
A very quick briefing.
Did she tell you, what did she tell you about the review, and specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen, and I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama. They were made up by the Biden. We went through years of that with the Russia hoax, with all of the different things that we had to go through. We've gone through years of it, but she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
So a few things to note there, and of course I want to really point out that when he references former Presidents Obama and Biden or former FBI Director James Comey saying that they made up the Epstein files, I'd remind you that a lot of people in the president's base and even some people in the administration had been the ones who had really been pushing this idea that these Epstein files needed to be released, that there was more to them, that there was potential accomplices listed in them. So I just want to give you that quick fact check. But
meet the IHOP House Faves value menu. Everything's just $6. Like the breakfast faves combo, $6. French toast breakfast, $6. $6 for all this and all that. That's a lot of